Hello everybody. Today we are going to look at an important concept that is introduced as part of the JDK 14, which is nothing but records. So what are records? If we look at it, traditionally we were using classes to transfer the data. Classes as data transfer vehicles. So these classes will contain the data members, okay, and then the getter and setter methods, constructors, okay, and behavior, if any, exclusively. And then we used to write we used to write or override the hash code equals to string method, so that we could utilize the internal libraries that are provided by JDK. So if you look at this, the class is nothing but the regular object type, okay, type of object. However, just to utilize this as a data transfer vehicle or a data transfer object, uh, we are writing a lot of boilerplate code for that. In those, one is the getter and setter methods. Do we know that the numbers are the same? Just because sometimes we might declare them as protected or private, right? So just to control the accessibility to those data members, we are using getter and setter methods. And accordingly, in order to give a flexibility to provide multiple uh, injectable data, multiple injectable data. For example, if we do not have the data for all the members, we want to provide only a few data members and create a constructor, create an object. So in such a scenario, we are overloading the constructor. Similarly, if there is additional behavior, we are adding it, and then we are overriding the hash code equals and toString method for our own purpose, for our own convenience, right? So if we see here, hash code equals and toString is a clear boilerplate code, because though we normally use the data members in implementing these, okay, it is a general norm, but still we go ahead and write the same code again and again just by replacing the data members there. So there is a lot of boilerplate code that we are writing with the traditional classes. Though there are a few libraries like Lomba which are introduced, which help in reducing the boilerplate code with the annotations, but still during the compilation or the runtime, uh, it's going to generate the code which is still going to be added as part of the class. So there is a lot of boilerplate code that is used. And another thing is these are mutable. Basically, we can the getters, and by using the getters and setters, we can just go ahead and modify the data that is present in the class. And due to this nature, using the regular normal class objects of the normal class as part of the multi-threaded programming is quite complicated, because we need to keep track of which thread has modified it, or we have at the same time we have to ensure that each of the threads look at the same data, okay, so that there is no mismatch in the data that each of the threads are looking at. So we need to ensure all these kind of parameters. So there are some inherent problems as such. Of course, there are patterns by following which we can convert them into immutable classes, but still that is going to we have to put a lot of effort in order to convert them into immutable classes, right? So in this way, we have to write a lot of code just to make the data transfer objects available. When it comes to record, so record is introduced primarily to carry the data. These are just data carriers. So they carry the data from one place to another. That is the primary objective of adding records. Okay, so in the records, similar to classes, we have data members, right? And we have constructor. Okay, constructor is a default constructor with data members. However, if we want to overload the constructors, that is also possible. We can use canonical constructors and overload them. That should not be a problem, right? And coming to the other methods, they have the default getters. Okay, though we do not define getter methods as such, there is a default getter. Okay, getter function in the with the same name as the data member. And similarly, we have hashcode equals toString, which is inbuilt. So for hash code, it uses the data members and it calculates the hash code out of the content of those data members. Okay, and similarly equals also, it equates each and every data member of the record, and to ensure whether two objects of the same record are equal or not. And similarly for toString, it uses the data member and the corresponding data, and then it will display it. Okay, so in this, apart from the data members, okay, we need not we need if we want to use the default constructor with data members, we need not do any other work because everything is coming by default inherent. Okay, and upon that, the records are immutable. That means a record, an object of type record, once it is created, we cannot modify the data members. Okay, so records are ideal objects which can be used in multi-threaded programming, so that we cannot, each thread can only read the data but cannot modify the data. In that way, it is much more secure in multi-threaded environment. And 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 similar to classes, we can declare our own private instance methods or behaviors. Okay, we can declare behavior. We can use static elements, be it a method, static elements like method, variable, block. Okay, so we can use any of those. And we cannot extend classes in records. However, in the regular class, we can extend a class or implement an interface, but in records, we can only implement an interface, but we cannot extend a class. Okay, so these are the various differences that we have with the regular classes and the records. Okay, now let us go ahead and look at how they work. Okay, let us create a type of record. Okay. String for string movement implements Now if we see here, okay, there is a new record of type rabbit that we have created. Now let us say, and let us create a new object out of this, record. So if we see here, we are declaring the food to be carrot, and its movement is more kind of a hop. Okay, so if we see here, we just declared a simple record of type rabbit, okay, which is implementing an animal, right? And here, since there is a default constructor with all its data members, so upon initializing, the rabbit object got created immediately. Now let us see what will be the other items that we have discussed. For example, constructor is present. We have seen that. Now let's go and check with what is the getter. Okay, rabbit dot. There is no get as is, but it is food. See, food as a get. Similarly, if we check, there is a movement. Movement is also a method hop, right? Now let us look at what is the hash code. Sorry. So a hash code is generated. However, if we see, while creating the rabbit, we didn't implement any hash code. Similarly, we will check toString. Okay. So in the toString, it is just displaying the data members and the corresponding data in those data. Now let us create a new. Now, if we see, we implemented animal, right? So animal has a default method, my movement. Now let us go ahead and see what is the whether we can access that method or not. So here, if we see, we are seeing that rabbit.myMovement has been was executed, and we can see the data display. Now let us say we want to override this my movement. Right. Okay. Now and okay. Here we have overridden the record. Okay. Now once again we have to create reinitialize the object. Okay. Now let us see what will be its movement. See, with the the overloaded method, my movement has been invoked. Right. Now let us cross check. Yeah. Let us create a new rabbit object. This rabbit eats radish. Okay. Now let us test the equals. We can see that rabbit.equals of new rabbit is false. Now let us modify the new rabbit with food carrot. Right. Now if we try to test the equals, we can see that the both the it gives both the objects as equal. Why? Because if you see, the rabbit object has food as food variable carrot and then movement variable hop. Earlier, the food variable of the new rabbit is radish and movement is hot. So it threw the equals method false. So it compared both the data member values and then it returned false. Now similarly, if we look at this one, new rabbit, after reassigning the food to carrot, it returned true. So equals method is internally by default implemented so that we can see how it behaves. Okay. So now let us see how can we create, how does a uh, constructor block work. Okay. So let us put it on record. Okay. Can create a constructor block. In this one, r equal to element and then equal to okay. Okay. Now if you see the constructor, it took it and then it squared it. It squared the integer which is 100 and then it gave a default string which we were assigning in the constructor. The default string is displayed. Okay. So similarly, we can have the static method, static blocks and static variables as well. Let me show that. Okay. And then static method. Okay. Now let's invoke. See. So first the static block was initialized. Okay, and then the static element is displayed. Right. Now similarly, if we try to invoke this static, so this is static method is also invoked. Okay. We can even create internal elements, but the internal instance element will not be exposed to the external world. Okay. So there are things like this. Okay. So this is about the records. Okay. Thank you.